As I said, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's purposeful. I like to leave a little bit of uncertainty in my life, a little bit of unboundedness, so that God's got room to move. And that's what I want to talk about this morning. You see, we can, in talking about Christian Care Sunday, in talking about how we care for others, we can talk about the institutions and we can talk about the organised way that the church has got in caring, but then we're only talking about those things and they're very much out there. We need to talk about Christian Care Sunday, and well, let's talk about it in biblical terms, ministry. Because Christian care and ministry are actually the same words, but ministry. Let's talk about ministry. How do we do that? How do we get there? And in saying that, what I want to do today is to invite you into ministry. I want to ordain you for ministry. One pastor said that. He said, one Sunday, he was in a liturgical service. I think he's Anglican. Anyway, not really sure. But that's Alan Hirsch. He's quite notorious and notable in his field in talking about Christian ministry and church, evangelism, that kind of thing. And he said one day he just ordained his whole congregation. Which is actually what Jesus does when he gives us the Great Commission. When he says, when he calls us to follow him, when he commissions us to reach the world with the good news of Christ, that's what's happening, is that we're called into ministry and we're given the task to join him in his saving work in the world. So, the question is, how do we do that? Yes, we can jump on the back of what an organisation is doing, or we can support an organisation or something like that. But I want you to make it personal. Okay, come personally into a relationship with Christ, into a step-by-step following of him where he's leading you, not where, not as a prescription of, I could give you a list of jobs which could be very useful in the church and for the general ministry, and that's part of it. But I want each of you to discover a calling for yourself for how you could be led by God. And it's really, really important, not just for the work that Christ has called us to, right? I mean, that's really important because there are people out there who don't know Jesus that are going to hell, and that concerns me. It should concern each one of us that it's possible that a large number of our community are never going to know the love and grace of God, are never going to experience, God in their lives today, but also are never going to see that final glory around the throne in heaven. And that's a big concern. I mean, some of us, as I say that, each of you has probably got someone in mind now that is really a burden for your heart, that you would love to see them come to know Christ. So there's that. The other thing is, though, when you experience the call of Jesus in your life and when you see him working in your life and working in the lives of those that you come in contact with, that just does wonderful. It opens up a wonderful window into heaven for you. You get to see, actually in the biblical term, it says it in Hebrews, you get to see things into which angels long to look. What a fantastic thing. That's the opportunity for you. You have the opportunity in ministry to glance those things that angels are standing around saying, oh, if only we could be a part of that. That's the opportunity for you. And it comes simply with, yes, Lord, I'll do what you call me to do. That's how it started with me. Okay? One day I invited a friend along to a New Year's Eve party. And so I thought, I was 17 years old, I thought, I'm going to have a New Year's Eve party. So I invited all my friends, I bought all the drinks. They were all soft drinks. I didn't know you were supposed to get hammered at New Year's Eve. Anyway, bought all these soft drinks and invited all my friends, and there was this other guy that came along. He'd been a friend at high school. He'd been living in Darwin. He'd ridden a motorbike from Darwin down to Loxton. Now, back then, bitumen was unheard of in Central Australia, right? This was before the highway was redone. So he rode a motorbike, a Honda 350. Not only that, he had his luggage and a pillion passenger. So two of them came down on one Honda. Unbelievable. Miraculous, it has to be. Yeah, especially on a Honda. All right. On a Yamaha, I could have believed it. But anyway, and Hondas aren't very comfortable. That's what I like about Yamahas. They put more work into their suspension and seats. And Hondas are rough. Anyway, sorry, I get distracted there. New Year's Eve party. We're all sitting around. And this guy starts talking about Jesus as if he's his mate. Like, you know, I was doing this and Jesus called me to do that. And I thought, I didn't know you could do that. That was the awakening for me. Look at that. I didn't know you could do that. Nobody told me. Been going to church all my life, and I didn't know you could do that. Anyway, later on in the evening, he'd taken some people off into the bedroom, and they were having a little prayer meeting. I didn't know this was going on. But after a while, I thought, where are the other guys? Where are they? So anyway, opened the door, and there they all sitting around. And, you know, they said, oh, you know, I've come to know Jesus and all that. They're having some wonderful times. We're going to have a prayer time. Do you want to join in? Sure. So I sat down and they all prayed. And I felt I needed to do something. And so I just said, when it was my turn, because they were all having turns, when it was my turn, I just said, Lord, I'm yours, Lord. Do with me what you will. And from then on, life started to change. It was just fantastic. There was no great, there was no great light, thunderbolt from heaven or anything like that. It was just that I believed in God all the time. I was a follower of Jesus, no problem. But I didn't know you could be more involved. And when I gave God permission to work in my life like that, doors started to open. They've been opening ever since. And something I discovered like 10 years ago, I started to think 100 years is just too short a time. If only we could all, we need a fast track in some of this, because there's so much we need to learn, so much we need to grow in faith and in knowledge of God and in what He's calling us to, that if He'd give us a bit of a head start and show us some more things, or maybe it's all in there, but anyway, and there's so many things we need to know. We need to work a little bit harder at discovering the things of God that He has for us in our lives, because angels are sitting around longing to look into this stuff, and we've got it all before us, and we move so slowly through it. Anyway, that's a little lament from me. The opportunity is there for each of us to enter into ministry, enter into the service of God, and so be blessed. Wouldn't you love to see the things that the disciples in that first generation of the church saw? They were sent out. What does Jesus send them out to do? Preach the gospel. Yes, but to heal the sick, to cast out demons, raise the dead, and proclaim the kingdom of God. Who wants to see a bit of that going on? Yeah. Wouldn't that be fantastic? To see God's handiwork working through you. Now, I've seen a bit of it in my life, in my ministry, in my experience. I've seen a bit of that. My first healing was someone with cancer. No, that's not true. My first healing was a tooth. Somebody had a rotten tooth, and that was healed. I mean, it's not something that you're going to put in as an addendum into the Bible, is it? But anyway, that was a bit exciting. But You know, I've seen people healed of cancer. I've seen people's leg get better. I've seen, well, actually a number of people healed of cancer. You know, things like liver and lung cancer and things like that. I've seen that, and I've experienced that in my own ministry. It's possible. It happens. It's even today. Let's do that, shall we? Let's do that kind of ministry. Sure, we can build institutions and things like that. That's sort of a follow-on from that, because that's making it bigger and you can help more people through institutions. But it starts with us. It starts with each one of us, and it needs to start. Each generation needs to find their own ministry and find their own miraculous in the love of God. Let's do that. How do we do that? I think for each one of us, it's going to be different. That's why we can't prescribe anything. It's going to be different with each one. Because as we say, I'm yours, Lord, do with me what you will, as each of us say that, then God is going to lead us on a path that may be different for each one of us. You know, one of the readings in our first service was the Good Samaritan. That was a Bible verse that they attached to Christian Care Sunday. And the result of that story is not to follow Christ, to care for your neighbour. You need to get out on the street and start looking for someone who's been beat up and is half dead. You know, we don't take that, do we? That would be silly. It's not prescriptive like that. But what it's saying is that we are called to ministry at the point of need of our neighbour and what happens in front of us. But when you offer yourself in service of the Lord, those things start to open in front of you with greater personal attachment and specificity, as in more specific. I should stop making up words. We've got enough of them. How can God work in you and through you? Example, you read these books and you get these famous Christians, and they always drop in, I was on a flight somewhere and I sat down and spoke to this person on the flight, right? And they became a Christian, or their leg grew back or something like that. It's always on a plane. When I was flying from Morocco and got on the plane and someone sat down next to me and we talked, well, I was reading this, I don't know, it was a book by Bill Hybels or something, and he's always talking about being on planes. Is it wrong to be jealous of that kind of... Anyway, maybe I was a little bit jealous, actually a whole lot, because I said to God, why can't I talk to someone on a plane? Why do I just get people who sit down and whinge about the government? He gets that, and I get, some dude that... Anyway, after I said that, I had a flight coming up, right, from Rockhampton to Adelaide, because I was on the board for local ministry or some mission and ministry. Anyway, I should know what board I was on, but anyway, I had this important meeting, so I was important, right? So I got on the plane from Rockhampton, and I sat down, and it was like God was saying to me, come on, ask me. Ask me. So I said, okay, God, give me someone I can talk to. So this person came and sat next to me, and I thought, is this going to be the one? So I had this book, something about faith. And I said, so heading down, I thought, how do I bring this discussion up or something? And he looked over and he said, what you reading about? I said, about faith. And he said, I lost mine. Now, that was a good in for a discussion, but you know what I said? Like, I couldn't help myself. Where'd you leave it? All right. Now, I know, I know you should take those questions more seriously, but anyway, that's just me. So anyway, I said, where'd you leave it? No, seriously, what happened to it? We got into a good discussion. The flight from Rockhampton to Brisbane is only about an hour. We had a good talk over an hour. I challenged him to reconnect with God. I said, look, don't worry about the church just now. Maybe you've had a bad experience, but reconnect with God. And so he had to think about that. And you know, while I was having a coffee, I saw him walking towards me. So I said to him, look, how you going? You reconnected with God yet? He said, oh, no, but I said, look, don't leave it too long. You know, do it. So he said, all right, I will. Get on the plane from Rockhampton to Adelaide. I sit down. Someone else comes, a woman, I think, comes sit next to me. And she said, oh, what do you do? I'm a pastor. Oh, what are you doing? You know, talk about going to a meeting. And she said, oh, and then it was something else. You know, I used to believe, but I don't anymore. We got about 2 hours there, 2.5 hours from Rockhampton to Adelaide, Brisbane to Adelaide. Had a great talk with her. On the flight home, I thought, let's see what God does this time. I'll just sit out. I won't even start the discussion. Person comes along, they ask me about stuff. And the same from Brisbane to Rockhampton, another person, 4 discussions on a plane. When you let God in, when you let Him direct the flow, ministry happens. And in a way that you can handle. Like, don't be sitting there thinking, I see the cogs ticking over. Oh, yeah, but you're a pastor, you're an expert in stuff. And as I told you before, I don't know what I'm doing, right? Everyone knows that. You know, you're some kind of expert. You could do that. Well, maybe I am a bit of an expert in that particular area, or I hope I'm an expert in some little area. But God will present someone before you who needs your kind of help. That's why He's chosen you. That's what He's equipping you to do. And He will give you something that you can handle. Actually, the truth is, He'll give you something a little bit beyond what you can handle. That's what God does. So that it's not up to you, so that you're dependent on Him, so that the Holy Spirit can work through you and then amaze you about the wonderful thing that God just did through you, and all the angels will be standing around thinking, oh, I'd love to be in that person's position. I would love to be in your position. In your position. I would love to be you right now. I would love to be you because of what God is doing in you right now. If only I could be in your... Have you ever thought of yourself that way? If, you know, that angels are thinking, if only I could be there where you are. That's ministry. That's what God is calling each one of us to every day. Let's enter into a time of uncertainty, shall we? Let's enter into the spiritual uncertainty of saying, okay, God, what do you want to do with me? Where do I need to be right now? And pray that it's something big. I always got concerned that God was going to ask me to, sell everything and move to Africa or something like that, But sometimes it was bigger than that. And sometimes it was smaller than that. But each time, God is faithful and has opened doors which are so much bigger than I could have imagined or hoped for. May God work in you. May God challenge you. May God call you to a place that's bigger than you can hope for. May God call you to do things that you're scared to. May God take you out of your comfort zone. Oh, please. Because that's where we seat ourselves front and centre, front row for a miracle. Let's go there. Let's go there. Let's not be safe. Let's step out into where God can really use us. Because each time we step out, He's faithful and shows us so much more than we can hope for or imagine. May God's peace be with you. May He call you higher. May you be blessed by your ministry. Amen.